Conflict resolution is tough for everyone. Today, I want to talk with you about your style of conflict and whether that is the appropriate approach. We all have typical ways of dealing with conflict. Most of the time, it's out of our awareness, and we just think it's right because that's the way we do it. And there can be a better way to approach the conflict if we're aware of which style we're using and of which styles are available to us. So let's get started talking about conflict styles. So today we are talking conflict styles. If you don't know your style, how you're coming across in a conflict, you can't make any changes, you can't get any better. So let's dig into that right now. I will say today's video builds upon an earlier video that I did on the dynamics of conflict, what's going on that puts us, the kind of the natural human interactions by which we get to a place of conflict with someone else. So I'd like you to go ahead and look at that video. You can do that through the link that I've provided on the screen in the lower right-hand corner. Now, once you've done that, once you get to a pinch or a crunch, you're now in a conflict. And you're going to respond in one of 5 ways. These are called interpersonal conflict styles. They're based on 2 axes. One is the concern that you have that your own needs are met. The other is the concern that others' needs are met in this interaction. This was put forth by Thomas and Ralph Killman, 1974. They created the Thomas-Killman Conflict Mode Inventory, or TKI for short, and they called these 2 areas assertiveness. That is, your concern that your own needs are met, that will behaviorally show out as assertiveness. And behaviorally, your concern that others' needs will be met was labeled cooperativeness. From this, they posited 5 styles: avoiding, competing, accommodating, compromising, and collaborating. Let's look at each of those in a little bit more detail. Now, avoiding, I realize you cannot see the page that's on the right. That's from a handout that I often include as part of training. If you would like a copy of this and the other pages that I reference in today's video, go ahead and here's what I want you to do. Your prize is to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. But then shoot me a note at my website. There's links here below this video. Come and go through my contact page. Let me know that you want these, and I'll be happy to send them to you. So the first style is avoiding. Avoiding is low on assertiveness and low on cooperativeness. The individual does not address the conflict or acknowledge its existence. Avoiding is exactly what it sounds. It's like you realize that things are not going well, but you don't acknowledge it to the other person. You try to avoid situations where this will even come up. You don't really want to have anything to do with it. Now, when is avoiding appropriate? It's when the issue is trivial. When other more important issues are pressing for you. When you see no chance of getting your concerns met. In fact, there's no way to win, and you're looking at it and you're just going, what's the use? I'm just going to keep my head down. Another time that's appropriate to avoid is when you simply just want to let people cool down before you address it. So it's more of a stalling action. Now, what are the pros that are associated with avoiding? You're not expending any energy, and you're conserving it for more important fights. Now, we've all used the term at times, this is not the hill to die on. That's expressing avoiding as a strategy. The cons, why does this not help? By definition, there is less engagement. You're not stepping into it. Therefore, the situation cannot improve for you. And based upon the role renegotiation model, If you're in a pinch and you keep avoiding the pinch and you keep not saying anything about it, eventually a crunch is on your way. That's avoiding. The second style is known as competing. Competing is high on assertiveness, that is, concerned that my own needs are met, low on cooperativeness. It's a power-based approach in which I pursue my own goals at your expense, relying upon my power, position, rank, or threat of sanctions to win. That's, competing. I'm going to win this conflict. So people who use this style are typically come across as more aggressive. It is appropriate when quick, decisive action is vital. It's appropriate to compete when there's some unpopular actions that need to be implemented and you don't have time to talk this through. It's appropriate when you know you're right on issues that are important to the organization. Now, what are the pros of competing? Well, you can win. You might get everything you're asking for. It does provide a sense of power, and for some people, it's like, wow, this is fun. I won at the conflict. Cons, you can lose it all, and particularly for people who use competing typically, maybe out of consciousness, maybe this is the only conflict style that they use, is to compete with the other person. People disengage. They don't want to have anything to do with you. They're discouraged. So over time, this is going to impact you not just when the conflict happens. It's going to be, gosh, you don't have people who are willing to work with you that well. So that's the second style. The third style is accommodating. Accommodating is the opposite of competing. It is low on assertiveness, high on cooperativeness. Accommodators neglect their own needs. They basically give to the other person what the other person is asking for. Accommodating and avoiding are not the same. Avoiding literally means we're not going to dialogue about this. I'm going to do my best, or the other person's going to do their best to make sure this doesn't even come up. Accommodating, by contrast, we are dialoguing about the issue. But once the positions come out, if I'm accommodating, I'm going to basically give you whatever you're asking for. Now, the pros of that, it doesn't ruffle feathers. Other people are going to see you as supportive. Energy free for other pursuits. Yeah, what's the downside? And again, the downsides tend to be downsides when this is the only style you use. If you're always accommodating, people are going to respect you less. They're not going to think that you stand up, even though you may have good reasons in your own head why you're giving to the other person. In their head, eventually they'll say, wow, no backbone. He won't go or she won't go to bat for me. So, accommodating. Fourth style, is known as compromising. Now, compromising is the midpoint. It's medium on assertiveness, medium on cooperativeness. Compromising is what most people think of when they think of conflict resolution. We come with our different positions. We talk them out. You want this, I want this, and we decide, you know what? We're going to split it. You take half of what you want, I take half of what we want. Then we wipe our hands and move away from the end of the day. When is compromising appropriate? When the goals are important but not worth the effort or potential disruption of the more assertive modes. It is appropriate when, in fact, each party is committed to mutually exclusive goals, mutually exclusive interests. Now, that is rarer than many people suppose, but it does happen. And at times, you know what, hey, the best we can do is you get part of what you want, I get part of what I want. What are the pros? No one goes home empty-handed. We keep the peace. What are the cons? The conflict can come back in the sense that because you're only getting part of your needs met, and I am, the seeds are there for resumed conflict. and there's a missed opportunity for innovation. Let me tell you what I mean by that. When, as you'll see in the next style, the last style is collaborating, where we both dig in, roll up our sleeves, and say, you know what, this seems to be tough, but we're going to figure out a way to get what we both want. That's when innovation can happen. If we always default to compromising, we never achieve the possibility that we might create a better reality, because we never look for it. So, that's compromising. Now, the fifth style, as I've already noted, is called collaborating. It's high on assertiveness. You're basically digging in there. You're saying, you know what, my needs must be met, but I also realize that your needs are just as important, and we're going to work at this until both of our needs are met. It is basically us getting to our interests, and I'll dig into that more in a future video. But us getting to our interests and then keeping working until we find a solution that achieves both of our interests. It is appropriate when the stakes are high, both in terms of the outcome that we expect, the issue that we're trying to deal with, and also when the relationship between us is very important. When we're trying to maintain, get what we want in the issue and maintain the relationship, collaborating is the way to go. So, what are the pros? We both win. We strengthen the relationship. We have increased understanding. The cons, it just takes more time, and we might have to settle for compromise or another approach if we can't find that third way. Now, when I'm using this with a group, after introducing this to folks, we need to get a sense of, well, so where am I and where are you on the team? What I like to do, and this is particularly when I'm working with a team around how they do conflict, is I get them to do a little bit of work individually, and that's to think through, jot down which styles are typical for them. So they're kind of doing a mini self-assessment now and saying, yes, I typically accommodate or compromise or so forth. And what styles do I see others use? So I'm jotting those notes down, and everybody's doing this all at once. It takes 2 or 3 minutes. Once they're done, or while they're working on this, I'm walking around the room putting up some labels that correspond to that Thomas Killman grid, but in the room. So the left-hand wall would be concern for self, and the back wall would be concern for others. And I'd put the labels up for the different styles, and then say, okay, everybody, where do we stand? Everybody go to and stand in the area that represents the conflict style that you typically use. And it promotes some wonderful conversation between everybody on the team. They get to see how people self-assess. You hear a lot of, yeah, I see that. And you also hear some usually gentle but real nudges that say, I think you maybe compete a little bit more than you think you do. And when most of the folks on the team are saying some of the same thing, people are actually getting some very valuable feedback about how they do conflict, but they're doing it in a way that they can hear it and accept it. So this is a fabulous way to assess and to see where we are. You say, wow, that's great, but we want something that's more concrete, more deliberate. Well, you know what you can do? Go ahead and take the Thomas Killman conflict mode instrument. That's an instrument that I can supply for you, but there are lots of folks out there that have those relationships with the former consulting psychologist press. Now it's part of the Myers-Briggs company, I believe is how they've rebranded themselves. Anyway, use the Thomas Killman. It doesn't take much time, about 10 minutes to complete, costs about $20-25 per person to do, and in it you get a readout of your conflict style. Actually, the bars, you can see that in the page over to the left-hand side. in terms of which styles you use most frequently, when and where you use each style, and then it gives you some advice on how do you exercise each style appropriately and how do you get more comfortable with less preferred styles. This is a great add-on to a training group discussion around how we do conflict and how can we do conflict better. Now, what are some takeaways that I want you to get from today? Takeaway number one is that there are 5 styles: avoiding, accommodating, competing, compromising, and collaborating. That each of those styles is appropriate at times, that you have your own preferred style and you need to know what that style is so that you can be conscious about your choice of style use and modify when appropriate. Now, I'm going to be continuing this because conflict resolution is a frequent ask. Everybody deals with it, and it raises everybody's temperature, and so they want to get better at it. So I've got some upcoming videos on skills that are involved in the conflict resolution process. How you move from positions to interests, how you maintain dignity, how to use iMessages, how to dialogue well. I hope you will come back and dig into those as well. If you're subscribed to my channel, you'll get those notifications as soon as they drop. Thanks for tuning in today's session on conflict styles. If you enjoyed this content, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit the subscribe button below. I turn out these videos on a weekly basis. They're all directed towards helping leaders lead and helping the organizational development professionals that support them do so in a more intelligent manner. Hit the like button, subscribe, and tune in next week. Thanks for watching. Be well.